Hello. It's been a couple of days since I've posted. If you're new and you're just now watching this video, this channel is for me to make journal entries, basically. I just start making eye contact with the camera more. I make journal entries, just for myself. It's basically like personal therapy, I guess you could say. Like when I talk about like how my mental state is or how my day's been, etc. In ways that I don't really like communicating with people that are in my life right now, like knowing that somebody like, a viewer, subscriber is paying attention, listening, it makes me feel better. It's therapeutic for me, that's the point of this. Anyways, I'm really fucking stressed out recently, like unimaginably stressed out, low-key been like aggressive with family and friends recently, which sucks. I've been like incredibly reclusive, which I'm not very proud of, but feels like my life is so boring right now, which sucks because I feel like I'm stranded on an island. Like I don't really have any friends at home. Here I have friends in other places. I have friends up in a state that I'm not gonna name because I'm trying to keep this like as anonymous as possible, which seems dumb, but I don't know. I'm paranoid, but there's a state that I go and visit every 6 months. It's fucking sweet. Like I have a shit ton of friends there. Like that's like where my main friend group is, and then I come back down to where I am, and it's like I really don't have that many friends. I've just been like incredibly low. Like I'm not even low. Like I was depressed. Like what's today? The 14th. I was depressed a week and a half ago, just because I was going through insane withdrawals. Like that's the only reason. I'm past that now, but now my life just still feels really really low. Not sad, not depressive, not anything like that. Just boring, like and that's really the only word for it, and that makes it seem like, like what the fuck am I doing? It makes me upset almost that my life is boring, because I know that I'm capable of like doing like cool things. I know I'm like a sociable person, like I know that like people like me. Like when I get to know people, I feel like people generally tend to like me. But for some reason here, like I just don't go out. I don't know why. Like something about being at home just like kind of anchors me. I don't know, like, I guess, so a part of that might just be, like, because my entire life, like, I didn't have a phone until I was, like, 14 years old. I didn't have a phone until I was, like, 14 years old, and, sorry. I didn't have a phone until I was, like, 14 years old, and that, like, really had a really big impact on my social life. I also wasn't allowed to, like, go outside or hang out with certain people unless, like, my mother knew them and their mother. So like imagine this, if you're like we're a social person in middle school, it's you're in 7th grade, some of your friends that you maybe played with or hung out with, played with, you know what I mean, hung out with like whenever, and they're like, oh dude, today after school, let's go do this, or you walk outside, bell dismissed, ding ding ding, everybody walk out, you walk out, and you're like, they're all like, oh, let's go do something, like let's go like if your name's Zach, like Zach, come on, let's go do something. And then you gotta sit there and look at them and be like, well, I might be able to tomorrow. Can you give me your mom's phone number so I can give it to mine and they can talk to make sure that we know all the details about where I'm going and who I'm hanging out with? And the kids would look at you and be like, what? like, no, we're just gonna go, because kids don't want to fucking do that, but my parents were like incredibly like not, I want to say controlling. They were overprotective, helicopter parents for sure. They wanted to make sure I was safe. They wanted to make sure I wasn't being exposed to certain things. But over time that made it like incredibly difficult for me to not only socialize but grow and mature. So by the time I was in 9th grade, I didn't really know a whole lot about a lot of things that most 9th graders would, which is how I easily got sucked into addiction. You know, my parents sheltered me from drugs my entire life, even the knowledge of them. I barely knew what they were. So when I got into 9th grade, I feel like, instead of being told, like, oh, when you smoke weed, that's a gateway drug, it can lead to certain things, and it'll lead your life down a hellhole, you know, like all this stuff. I didn't really know exactly what weed was. I just knew that it existed, because I heard people talk about it. And then in 9th grade, my freshman year in high school, fuck, dude, God, fucking brain fart, dude. Fuck. In ninth grade, one of my friends from middle school came up to me in the locker room and he had discovered marijuana for himself and had started buying and was actually the school's plug at the time. He comes out to me and he goes, I have this dab pen. Do you want to try it? And I go, yeah, I've seen these before. Let me do that. Never really done it before. And it was a liquid diamond cart, right? Which, I mean, it's like middle to high, kind of like. I mean, back then, Delta 9 was also still legal, so Delta 9 gets you fucked, right? Comparatively, it's like the new stuff. So my friend gives me a Delta 9 liquid diamond cart and a cookies battery, which could go up to 30 watts, which is kind of strong. It's not really strong, but it's stronger for a cart battery. So I go and I hit that, right? And I hit that John, right? And he's telling me, he's like, oh, keep going. Blinker it, keep going. So I'm like, fucking like little ninth grade me, right? And if I feel like if I had known more about substances or if I was more educated, maybe I would have thought twice, you know? But so little ninth grade me fucking smacks that and I'm like, I was fucked, right? And so then after that, like, I like, it grew on me, you know? Like I was fucked up and I was kind of like, I greened out for sure, right? But there were certain periods of time, like after I like threw up and everything, where I was kind of sitting there and I was stoned, and I was like, man, all this stress, like it literally like pieced into my head. Sat there and I was like, man, you know, all this stress that's in my life about tests, and I was on the cross country team and the wrestling team, so I was like in sports and all this, like all the stress that I have about it. Oh, I'm not even thinking about it right now. That's amazing. I don't want to think about that right now. I'm just gonna, you know, keep getting high. So like, marijuana isn't a chemically addictive substance, but it's psychologically. So in my mind, I'm like, if I just keep smoking weed, I won't be so anxious and stressed out about everything. But that led me into like, eventually like, I got more curious. And I'm like, what else can like, cause then like tolerance builds, and you're like, okay, now I'm high and I'm like still stressed and anxious. So I'm like, what else can I do? So I started like experimenting with other things. You know, I don't really want to talk about like what I did, you know, exactly. But I started getting into other things, and more addiction started from that. You know, and I ended up going to rehab for like 9 months after that. So that's a completely different story. I have a really really long, extensive history with rehab, residential facilities, and psych wards. That is a story that I'm not going to talk about right now because that is a very long story. I feel like it was kind of traumatic for me growing up, you know, and had a lot of negative consequences that I wasn't taught how to socialize correctly when I was younger. And now to that day, it brings some kind of anxiety, and I don't really want to like leave the house without telling my parents where I'm going and who I'm going to be with, because they kind of like drilled that into my brain like, hey, when you leave the house, location's on, tell me where you're going. Like nowadays they don't do that, you know. I'm an adult. They don't have the right to do that anymore. I actually told them you can't do that anymore, and they're like, okay, you're an adult. We don't have to, you know. But for some reason, every time I go out, I still do it, and I don't like doing it, but I still do it, and it makes my mom stressed because now she knows where I am, and she wants to know what time I'm gonna be home, you know. So then I just don't do it, and then I don't get to socialize. It's like it's a vicious fucking cycle. It's a vicious cycle, and I don't know. I don't know how to fucking stop it. But like when I'm away from home, when I'm not in my house, dude, I'm like an extrovert. Like at home, I'm a fucking introvert. Outside of my house, like when I'm living in a different state with some buddies of mine, like for a couple months, I'm like one of the most extroverted people you will meet. I want to talk to you. I want to hang out. I want to go out and do shit. But here, you're like, dude, let's go out. No thanks. You know, I just want to stay home. I don't understand it, but I think that I like piecing it together. Like that has to be something to do with it. You know, it has to be somehow related to like the way that I was raised, and being around my parents kind of keeps it in check. You know. But yeah, I mean, if you're a parent watching this, don't fucking helicopter like monitor your kids, bro. Give them some freedom. Let them fucking scrape their knee and rub some dirt on it. You know, not like actually, but like they're gonna go into seventh grade, and they're gonna have the knowledge on what's good and what's bad. And if they do the good thing, good for them. If they do the bad thing, it'll come to bite them in the ass at some point. And eventually, they're gonna fucking learn. Don't hover over your kids, dude. It's fucked up. You gotta you have to give them some freedom and the right knowledge with that freedom to help them grow in the best way possible. You know, but also don't just let them run loose, because then they'll do something that'll get them in trouble or hurt someone or hurt themselves. You don't want that. You know, there's a good balance they need to have. But yeah, that's my video for today.